Human Development, which is a University Center of Excellence in Developmental Disabilities. And we partner with the Autism Program, or TAP, and I need to disclose that a portion of my salary is paid by them. So that's me, but my background is in speech-language pathology and disability studies, and I work very closely in assistive technology. My co-presenter is Michelle. And she has no financial disclosures, but she is the parent of a child who does receive services through TAP. And I'm going to let her introduce herself. She wasn't able to make it today, but she's very much a partner in this presentation, so we'll see her on video throughout the talk.
My name is Michelle. I am a middle school elective teacher, a mom, and in my spare time I like to garden, which around this house means I like to pull weeds, and in my spare time, I do like to try to sneak in a book or two as much as possible.
All right, so I'm curious who you guys are. Are you all on the caregiver track, caregivers, parents, caregivers, professionals?
Parent and teacher.
Both, all right, yes. Same, both, cool, very good. What kind of teachers are you guys?
Special ed, elementary special ed.
Okay,
I'm the program manager at the TAP Center in Rockford.
Oh, great. Oh my goodness, you came farther than I did. I'm from Chicago, so very nice. Well, great to have you guys here. So just really quickly, the purpose of our time together is kind of introduce you all to AAC. This talk does center around a case study. Michelle's daughter, who's young in the early intervention, now she's in early childhood, but it's applicable to all ages, really. And just kind of sharing some examples of how AAC can support communication needs of those on the autism spectrum. Take a look at some of those myths that are out there and do some myth busters. Oh, I'm going to take the captions off. And then talk you through Emily's story. So just curious, how many of you are familiar with AAC or have used it? Yeah? Great. Professionally, personally, both? Both? Great, awesome. So just really quickly, I want to introduce what AAC is. There are a lot of kind of big definitions because augmentative and alternative communication is an umbrella term. But I like Linda Burkhart's description, which is a set of tools and strategies that an individual uses to solve everyday communication challenges. So really, in a nutshell, AAC is anything that we're using to help support our communication, right? We could use texting on a phone, we could use email, we could use a communication device, a communication board. Those are all tools, and different strategies might be the ways in which questions are introduced to you, the way that you answer questions, different strategies that each individual is using. But really, the purpose of AAC is to support language comprehension and expression. So not only just your ability to say what you want to say, but also to be able to understand spoken language if you have any difficulty with auditory processing or receptive language. Adding that augmentative communication tool can be helpful. So it works both ways, I guess, in a nutshell. And just a reminder that effective communication happens when the intent and meaning of one individual is understood by another. So the method, the modality, doesn't really matter. We're just looking for effective communication. What's it look like? So here's a couple of examples. AAC comes in many shapes and sizes. Maybe some of you are familiar with iPads with speech-generating apps. That's that picture on the left. The picture in the center, though, is a dedicated speech-generating device that somebody may have gotten from their health insurance, where you can access it maybe through eye tracking, so you're looking at the buttons instead of pushing it, or head tracking, you're moving your head and neck around. But it can also be a communication book that's on the lower left-hand side, and anything kind of in the middle. Regardless of what it looks like, we want the tool to be able to ensure that the individual who has the communication need can not only request, which is a big focus, I want this, I want this, I want this, but also do all of those other things that language supports, right, or language allows us to do. Tell stories, tell jokes, make comments, ask questions, protest, all of those things. So when we're looking at different tools that are available for individuals, we want to make sure that they can meet all of these language needs. So who benefits from AAC? Well, there's this term, complex communication needs. Are any of you familiar with that term? It's another big acronym shortened to CCN, but really it's anyone who might experience communication difficulties due to speech and or language issues, right? And that could be developmental or acquired. So AAC works throughout the lifespan, helps individuals, children and adults with developmental disabilities, as well as those with acquired disabilities, somebody who might have had a stroke or a different ALS, something like that acquired later in life. So for this next part, I just want to check it out. I know some of you are kind of familiar with AAC, but I thought maybe I would show you some different things, especially the tool that we're going to see that Michelle's going to describe with her daughter. So on your table, you should have some non-electronic communication boards. And from those of you who are online, I'm going to pull it up on my iPad in just a second. But I gave people a couple of varieties, and they have front and back, so feel free to flip them around too. Some are in Spanish, but have an English side as well. And I don't know, you could kind of look around or kind of just see and try and answer these questions. But with your tool, are you able to answer the question, how are you? And I'm going to just share my screen for those who are online of what we're looking at. So did anybody find a way to share that, to say how are you? Yeah. I'm going to pull up my example. All right, so anybody have a way to say how are you? Answer that question. What could you use on your board? All right, perfect. Anybody else have anything they could say with their board? Uh-huh. Oh, that's good. I was going to say my board has tired on it, and I'm kind of feeling that at this moment. All right, what if you are thirsty or hungry? Do you have a way to say that on here?
Eat and drink.
Sure. Mm-hmm. You could maybe even put it together with like want, drink, or want, eat, want to drink. What if I said, well, what do you want to drink? Awesome. Yep, your board has a way to spell, and I'm imagining if you could spell it, you have literacy skills to be able to spell. Mm-hmm. So some of those like specific words aren't always on the non-electronic boards, but they certainly have a place, right? They're easy to carry around, they're always available, and they're light, and you can quickly say something. But you don't always have the way to do specifics, right? Like I want a Diet Coke with ice or something like that, no straw. So now, though, I want you to think of 3 words in your mind to describe this image. So you have your 3 words. And we'll think back to our non-electronic board. Oops. Sorry, I'm trying to bounce back and forth. Are they on there? What was it? That's a good one. Uh-huh, good. Uh-huh, good. Were your other couple of words on there? No, right. Usually they're not, right? Because most of the things that we want to say do not fit into 96 words. So that's where we're going to take a look at more robust language, some electronic communication talkers, sometimes people refer to them. So I will say I don't work for a vendor. There are so many options available for different communication devices, and that's why it's key to work with a professional who, understands AAC, knows who all these vendors are, and can show you. These are just a few examples of some. I am not kind of here to advertise any one or more. We're just going to look at this one because of our Michelle and her daughter use this app. So this app is on the iPad, and it's called TD Snap. So if you take a look at those iPads, the code to get in is all zeros, so just 6 zeros. And if you want to learn more about TD Snap, that QR code will take you there. But this device is available on iPads, as well as devices that can be funded through health insurance and early intervention. School districts often have a TD Snap app, so it's pretty well known out there. Was everybody able to find the Apple on the iPad? And it's all zeros to get into the device. All right, so let's go back to our 3 words that you had in your head of our picture. I know we had people and work, but maybe some other 3 words, and see if you can find it in that device. And I'll just share my screen. And feel free to push buttons. It's okay, you won't break it. So we're looking at this one. So what were some folks' words? Men? Okay, so I would probably go into people, maybe. There's man.
Man.
Mm-hmm. What else? Yeah, definitely. So I went into descriptors because in my mind I was looking for dangerous.
Dangerous.
And I'm sure high might be up in here as well. And if it's not, there's a little magnifying glass at the top that you can type in and search for the word, and it will show you how to get there.
High.
So when you add an electronic device, it just opens up all the things that you can say and all of the words. So it's nice to have one of these too, because that non-electronic system is going to work really nice at the beach or in the pool or in the tub or when this is charging, but this one's going to work nice when you need to have access to all of those words, right? So feel free to explore it throughout my talk. I hear them talk all the time, so if we hear words, it's no problem. But in a nutshell, that's AAC. So you've seen the non-electronic versions and the electronic versions and how they can kind of support communication. So I want to switch gears now to talk about some common misconceptions that I still hear from both professionals and families, and trying to bust all of these myths because the research is telling us differently. So the first one, is that AAC hinders or stops further speech development. And there really is no evidence to show that. In fact, on contrary, there is some research to show that introducing little ones to AAC can actually improve speech skills. And I think there's a couple of hypotheses about that. It gives you access to hearing words over and over again, and you can start to repeat them, but it also makes you in charge of the communication and not being more of a passive, like answering questions all the time, but now maybe you're initiating or you're making those requests to people and not waiting to be asked about it. So there's also research to show that there are growth in language skills, so your understanding and comprehension of words and your ability to combine words and make sentences and just your vocabulary growth is that much bigger. And this most recent study was kind of a meta-analysis, which they looked at all these research studies together and came up with some conclusions that children 0 to 6 show improvements in not only just expressing and understanding language, but they're using more and more communicative behaviors like nodding your head yes and no, or shrugging your shoulders, just behaviors that help to support and facilitate communication, which in turn is supporting increased participation and increased interaction, right? They all kind of funnel together. The next thing I often hear is that children need to have a set of certain skills to benefit from AAC, and this is just not true. It is a very old myth that there were a certain set of prerequisites that you needed to have before that somebody could be introduced to a communication system. In reality, AAC is making language accessible when speech is not accessible. So if someone can't prove that they know language, well, it's kind of like chicken and the egg, right? They haven't have access to language yet. So how can you prove that you know language, right? So we want to make sure that we're presuming potential for learning and providing the right supports to teach AAC. There's a lot of research to show that when you combine AAC with naturalistic developmental behavioral interventions, or NDBIs, that you have better language outcomes for children on the autism spectrum. And then remember what Linda Burkhardt had mentioned in her definition, AAC supports both expressive and receptive understanding. So if you are having trouble with auditory processing and someone's just talking at you, putting the visual in front makes speech less fleeting, right? It kind of, I say it and then it's gone. This stays. This is more static. You know, what I said is on the screen. The picture is right there. So it can help with that comprehension. And the last one I'll talk about is just children having to be a certain age to benefit from AAC. And that's simply not true either. In fact, I would argue that the earlier you start, the better, because the younger you are, you're just a language sponge, right? So the more that you are exposed to this earlier, the better success you'll have. That doesn't mean that if you're 6, 16, or 36, you can't get started, but we want to be able to start early so that we can capitalize on early learning and development and prevent some frustrations that can happen when you don't have a way to communicate for yourself. And so all of this is to say what our goals are. So, right, we're really focused on making sure that everyone becomes a competent communicator. And what does that mean? It means that you've got the knowledge of language and these language skills so that you can effectively convey your opinions and your feelings. And you can do this to a variety of different audiences on different topics and in a variety of settings. So you can say all the things that you want and need to say. And communication autonomy is the ability to say what you want, when you want, to who you want, and how you want. So that's what we're really focused on. And the only way to be able to do this is to have access to a robust vocabulary, or in, layman's terms, a lot of words. You need all the words. I cannot pick out the 20 words that you're going to say. Just like when we were talking about that picture of the men on the beam, your non-electronic display didn't have those words, right? There's only 96 words, and there's so many more words that you need to have available. And the way that we teach kids how to use AAC is we speak AAC ourselves. So I will kind of liken it to a model of learning a different language. It's much easier to learn a language when you can be in that country or immersed in that culture that's speaking that language versus sitting down and reading about it in a book and being tested on it. It's not fun. It's more fun to be engaged in a conversation where everybody else is speaking that language. And that's the same with AAC. So when we turn it into work, it becomes not fun and not a tool that can be powerful to help with communication, but more of a job that's, really hard to learn because it's just not how we learn language. So aided language input is kind of the fancy term for speaking AAC. And so as the competent communicator, you're modeling how you might say something on the AAC device. And you can do that by reading stories, through play, sensory activities, right? If we were playing with Play-Doh and had beads in there, we might talk about how it's squishy or it's hard or all the different colors, or I like this feel, I think it's stinky, so I like to say it's smelly. All the different words that you can say and comment on while you're doing those different activities. And we would model at the level that the child is at in their language. So if this child is not even saying single words yet, then we're just going to model single words. If they're producing single words, then we're going to bump it up to 2-word sentences. So maybe they're requesting milk, and we want to say, want milk, to kind of start to build that. So I might say, oh, you look like you want milk. But on the device, I would just model want milk, right? So just those 2 words so that we're within where they are at in their learning journey. When you are speaking AAC to teach AAC, you're also being very acceptant of multiple methods of communication. So if the child knows how to sign for milk, we don't need to say, okay, I got it, you want milk, now go find it on the device and tell me you want milk, because that would never happen in our, in someone who's speaking, right? You wouldn't nod yes, and then I'd say, now you must say the word yes. So we don't want to do that. So we want to accept multiple methods of communication, no testing or forcing, and just, like I said, demonstrating a variety of language functions, like asking questions with the device and rejecting, saying, no, I don't like it, or that's mean, or whatever. Commenting, oh, it's funny, that show was really funny, I liked it. And I think that this kind of stat on the, when you're looking at the right side of the board is interesting, because So what it says is by 18 months, babies have heard 4,380 hours of spoken language, and we don't expect them to be fluent speakers. So they're just being exposed to all of their moms and siblings and dads and caregivers and everybody talking to them, and we're not expecting them to be competent communicators yet. But if AAC learners only see symbols modeled for 20 to 40 minutes per week, so kind of like a typical speech therapy session protocol, it would take 84 years to have that same exposure. So that's just, the more we can model and demonstrate it, the more immersed in the communication and the AAC they'll be. Yeah.
So like reading stories, what would that look like with an AAC? Like just having it, by our side. So just like pick out 1 or 2 words on a page.
Yeah.
Like if it's about animals.
Yeah.
Those animals.
You could do that. You could just comment. You could say, "Oh my goodness, I think this is so cute. No, we're reading about a bunny," and find the word cute and find the word bunny, or "I like this," or "Oh, sad. Look at her face. It looks sad." And then you're modeling the word sad. And then if you want to ask a question, like, "What do you think?" Maybe they could tell you. Or not, because it's just the beginning, and I wouldn't push it. I wouldn't say, "I'm not turning the page until you tell me," right? It's just, think about if you didn't have the AAC device, what you would be saying, and now it's there, and just say kind of the highlights on the device. Does that make sense? So yeah, any other questions about that, or how you would introduce AAC and kind of model it? All right. And then we'll keep going, because this is the best part, which is Emily's story. And so, like I said, Michelle's going to have her video here to kind of explain a little bit about their journey. So we'll get started. Can you tell us a little bit about your daughter, Emily?
So my daughter, Emily, is 3 years old.
Can you all hear?
In January. She was diagnosed with autism in November. So it has been a very interesting few months. We've been just learning a lot as we go. Though she is nonverbal at this point, she is very opinionated about her likes and dislikes. She loves Miss Abby, Miss Rachel, Elmo, Abby, the Count, Cookie Monster, all the Sesame Street characters, and she loves stuffies, so she likes to carry what we call her people with her wherever she goes, and doesn't need my help carrying these people to wherever she goes, so she will occasionally get frustrated. But she loves going to the park and playing outside, making mommy write with chalk on the driveway. She loves the alphabet and her numbers and shapes. Dislikes chocolate right now, but I think that will change.
That's gotta change. Or she's going to be incredibly healthy throughout life.
Yes.
All right, and then this was just kind of about their AAC journey so far. So Michelle and I put this together last month, so all of the timing is all current. So Emily is 3 years, 3 months right now. Can you tell us a little bit about your journey through EI and getting Emily's diagnosis?
So we suspected something might be going around her year birthday when she still wasn't speaking. She was a little bit behind in like her motor milestones, like crawling and walking, but we weren't necessarily concerned with those too much at that point because it seemed like she was within normal range. But when she hit like 18 months, she did start walking, still had no speech. So we enrolled her in EI, which took a few months to get the ball started. But once we did get her evaluation done, she qualified for speech, OT, PT, and DT. So that was very overwhelming to realize that she was behind in all of those areas. Her percentages, I don't remember off the top of my head, but they were definitely like delayed. Mm-hmm. But we tried to just focus on the good, that we were getting her all of these resources at just past 18 months. Mm-hmm. At her 6-month progress meeting, the speech supervisor suggested that because her receptive language was very good, that she would be an excellent candidate for an AAC device. So that was in April of 2024. And so she was placed on like the waiting list to get.
So I'm going to pause Michelle there. Remember, there's no prerequisites. So I'm so glad that they were recommended for AAC, but the rationale that her receptive language was so good is not required. So it doesn't matter if your receptive language is so good or not so good, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So my provider hat, we do have a lot of families that call. They word it like we need funding for an iPad, but they're really, I think they're asking for a communication device.
Yeah.
Do you recommend that they get an assistive technology evaluation to figure out what program works best for that child?
Yes. I do, yeah. And funding is available. So in early intervention, they will cover funding for devices. You need to request it 6 months before the child is going to age out. So essentially at 30 months of age, which can be tricky timing-wise. And Michelle's going to go into the wait list that she experienced in Chicago. So I'm assuming it's very similar across Illinois. But health insurance, including Illinois Medicaid and most PPOs, will cover devices as well. Yes, durable medical equipment for sure, yeah. But you would need a speech therapist and a doctor to sign off if you're going to use health insurance.
An evaluation
Okay.
at that time. And so then we just kind of moved forward. We increased her speech to 2 sessions per week.
And at this time, she's about 24 months. Is that, am I doing the math?
Yeah, just over 24 months. Yeah.
Okay.
And then kind of just progressed through that. And then it came up to our year evaluation. So October of 2024, and we still hadn't heard about the AAC evaluation, and she was still on the waiting list. I think we finally, at the end of October, got placed for an appointment. But we were also told that because it was so late in the game that she would be 33 months or older than 33 months when the evaluation would take place, that she wouldn't qualify for the AAC device through the state, that would be then something we'd have to either go through the school district or pursue privately. So we were like, okay, a little disappointed because we've been waiting for so long. But we're like, okay, well, at least we'll move forward from there. And
during that time in speech therapy, she was learning, and you guys were learning sign language, right? And like using photos and things around the house to help with communication.
Yes. So she had mastered like signs for like more and open and just very basic signs. She's going for her nap. And then we had also started to use like a couple of like posters in the kitchen to identify the foods that she would regularly eat that she could request by pointing, places we would go.
I hear her giggling.
I hear places we would go. Can you wave hello? Can you wave hello?
Say hi.
Hi, it's good to see you. You look so big. My goodness.
You feel me big?
How big are you?
Big.
You're so big. You are so big.
Oh yeah. So photo boards in the kitchen that we first started, per suggested by her speech, like read, sleep, eat, drink, and more. And then from there, we started to identify places that we were going to help with transitions as far as like library, school, daycare, any of the places that we would regularly visit to kind of help
like you had the photographs of them, like the photo of the library, the photo. Got it. Cool.
Of her in those places. So like her at the museum and things like that, so that she could kind of transition easier. And then also tell us what she wanted to do that day, like go to the park or play outside.
Cool. Did you find introducing that stuff, I mean, not only help with communication, but any like, was she having any behaviors when she wanted something but couldn't tell you? And with this
She
help?
was starting to get like really frustrated as far as a lot of different things, like things that she would want as far as food. Like if she wanted crackers, it was like she'd open the cabinet and then we'd have to physically like show her, or she'd have to grab it. So the photo board of the food helped us to be like, okay, what would it be that you'd like to eat? And then we'd have some options on there. So at least she could start to identify what she wanted to kind of reduce the amount of frustration.
Nice. Very nice. Cool. And then the speech therapist that you were working with, I mean, it sounds awesome. She was giving you all of the suggestions about transitions and the pictures and the non-electronic communication boards. Was she just somebody who wasn't familiar with AAC that couldn't do the AAC evaluation?
Right. I don't think that was a part of like what she did, because it was not something that she ever suggested pursuing like outside of the EI program, or being able to like write anything up for us for that, for our own like insurance and purposes and things like that.
Got it. Okay. And then I know we met kind of around Thanksgiving, and that was Emily's first exposure to an electronic AAC, right?
Right. Yeah, we had kind of been using just like those posters. And she jumped in it like right away. I mean, she was identifying, I think vampire was like the first word that she was using, just because she loved the count. And we were trying to connect it to something that she liked. So that was, and I think she grasped onto the idea of the AAC very quickly. I think she was ready to show us what she wanted to say and what she knew.
So when I met her, she was, like she said, she turned 3 in January, and we met at the end of November. So she was 2 years and 11 months, something like that. And I went over to the house, we looked at different options, and really when an AAC assessment is not a test, it's just a dynamic assessment. If you're having a communication need, then AAC is warranted. It's just which one is going to work well for you and what features do you need. And we do that by playing and observing and interviewing the families, and it's very much a team decision. Families weighing in, the child weighing in, the professional giving their kind of expertise and understanding. And while we were playing, I showed different devices and different options, and we landed on that one that you guys were taking a look at, which is this TD Snap. And she got the smallest device in that trio, which is the size of an iPad mini. So you guys all have regular iPads, it's a little bit smaller. And this is kind of what it looked like. And as her mom had said, she really likes the count in Sesame Street. So she found that word right away. But otherwise, it was just kind of exploring and pushing buttons. And it doesn't look like it's very meaningful at all, which it shouldn't. She's day 1 of this, right?
From, on, left.
Where's the
stop,
count, Emily?
right.
Where's the count?
From. Vampire.
So when it's really meaningful to a 2-year-old, you'll find it, right? And that's,
Zaku, he, from, on, left.
okay, go to the next one. So why we liked it, well, Emily, it was the only device that actually had the word vampire stored in it, so that was a big hit for her because of her interest in the count. But I think that just really stresses the highly desirable vocabulary, especially for this age group, because like these boards, while they're very useful, they're boring words, right? They don't have all those fun words that a 2 or 3-year-old wants to tell you about. And so including those is really, really important. And it lets you know your personality. Your personality comes out when you can talk about the things that you like and that you've done. Michelle's liked it because of the excitement and joy that she saw in Emily using the tool. Operationally, we looked at how you would add vocabulary and add more personalized words. She thought that it was easier than some of the other systems that we had tried out, and that's valid. I mean, you're going to be adding when Sesame Street is no longer of interest and you move into dinosaurs, then you got to add in all those things, right? And so it needs to be easy to be able to personalize. Obviously, she's 3. You got all the other stuff that you're carrying with your little one, so having it be portable so that you can take it around was really important. And she just felt like in comparison to the way that the words and language were organized in the other systems, that this was more intuitive for her. And I think that's important because she's going to be our primary modeler, right? We want her to be saying the things that she's teaching Emily to say. And so for her to be able to navigate that was important. For me, so the app that you guys were looking at has a motor planning component, which means there's only one path to get to each word. So you can learn it in a similar way that you might learn how to play the piano or type on a keyboard. Your motor memory starts to pop in. And not all apps are built like that. Like, for example, words that are the same word but have multiple meanings, like the word orange. You might find orange in colors, orange in fruit, orange with clothing, so it goes with colors, orange with art. So orange can be all over, right? But in a motor planning page set, there's only one place for orange. And little ones who don't know that orange can be a fruit or a color or a marker, that's like too much. I need to learn 5 different pathways to get to orange when I can just learn one. So it can be harder for adults who have language already mapped into their mind, but for little ones it actually makes it easier. So I liked that component of the app. And it's got that robust language, so we're not just modeling, I want milk, or I want a nap, or I need a break, but we can say like it, don't like it, stop, go, fast, easy. And it also had something called a vocabulary filter, which is if it looks like a lot of words on the screen, and you just want to focus on teaching a couple, like today you're going to focus on teaching stop and go and, vehicles. You can filter out all of the other words so that you just see stop, go, and all of the vehicles. And that can help kind of focus on that learning aspect. And then you can toggle that off and all the words come back and stop and go and the vehicles all stay in the same spot. So you've learned the motor plan to get to them, and the clutter around it with all of the other words doesn't confuse you. So we liked that aspect as well. The other thing is she's 3, and her fine motor skills aren't super awesome yet, as most 3-year-olds don't have fully defined fine motor skills. But we didn't want to not have a lot of words because clearly she needs a lot of words. So what you can do is add something called a key guard, which, let me just grab mine. It's just like a plastic overlay. So this is an example. I'm sorry that it's clear. But it just goes over the screen, and it makes it so that there's a tactile, so you can feel the buttons, kind of like you can feel the buttons on your computer, as well as a visual break in the buttons, and it gives you a little like slot to put your finger in so that you've got more of a target, which can help immensely for these little ones, that they're not kind of dragging their wrist on it and hitting all these buttons that they don't mean to, but it kind of facilitates accessing it. And the device that we chose came with a key guard, so that was an extra special thing. And I have all this stuff up here if at the end you want to come and see it.
And that came with Snap or TV Snap, or that came with the iPad, like
That device. So yeah, it's kind of, it's tricky. So these devices make apps that you can buy commercially. TD Snap, university has purchased it commercially on those iPads. And then they make durable medical equipment that is the app on an iPad in a case, and it's a package. And so that's covered by insurance.
So my daughter's is an iPad mini, it's only a communication device.
Yeah. Did you get it through insurance? Yeah.
So, but I mean, so like that key guard only works for TV Snap, is that what you're saying?
This one does, but most companies make key guards. Yeah, so if she's using like touch chat on an iPad, they have key guards that go with them. Yep. So this was kind of what it looked like when we started. A lot of babbling, which is exploring. So you kind of got to think about like when babies and toddlers are playing with sounds in their mouths, their parents are responding to them. I'm sure we've all met somebody who's like, my 6-month-old says mom. And it's like, meh. And you're like, I don't know. But mom thinks it's mom, and she's going to be like excited, and then the baby's going to keep doing that and eventually form it into ma and mom. And that's exactly what it's like with the AAC device. You're kind of exploring things, and then people react to it, and then you go, oh, they reacted to this. I'll remember that's what happened when I did that. It's kind of like a very basic cause and effect. And that's language growth, and that's what we want to do. So here is Emily doing that. It's upside down, too. That's okay.
Elmo, potato, he potato, y others left Emily. DFFFXXC feels. They tried to. What? How?
All right, so what happens when you're going through any type of funding, EI, health insurance, and in most school districts, you're going to do a trial. So we trialed, that device is something called a TD Navio Mini, and like I said, it's just an iPad in a case with the app, but it can be considered durable medical equipment. And the least amount of time is usually a 30-day trial. That's required by health insurance, and it's just best practice. I would say at most I do a 90-day trial, but if we go any further, it's like we got to just pick one. We got to just get started. We got to commit, okay? So you can't, you can have better ones for some people than others, but we got to go with it. So usually my trials when I work with folks are 30 days, which is what Emily did with hers. And during that trial, she had access to the device in her home, and we were able to get that through the Illinois Assistive Technology Program, which is kind of like a library for anyone living in Illinois of assistive technology. And they have iPads and speech-generating devices and all that you can loan for 5 weeks, no charge. And so that's what we did for this, and so she used it at home. They were hesitant about taking it out because it wasn't theirs yet, but in addition, we did training with her mom and dad, where I just went through that modeling that we talked about, speak AAC to teach AAC. Good habits like don't make it work, make it fun, don't make it hard, show that it's powerful, and keep it with you at all times. You got to kind of think it's like your voice, and that's what we did. So here's Michelle.
Yeah, so once we got that loaner device, we were like just using it as much as possible. Like we just kept it at home just to kind of keep it like familiar to her with the things at home. We didn't want to send it to school and have it get lost or anything like that, or daycare. But we were just using it as like, okay, she was great in just going to it to identify what she wanted to say. But also when we were watching like shows, we would connect it to whatever she was watching on the screen. Oh, let's find it here. She quickly found the YouTube button in the AAC device to request YouTube and to request the TV. But even then, like different books, she would, oh, that's a circle. And then she'd go find circle, or brown bear. Oh, that's a bear. And then even working on the colors, she would identify the colors on her device.
So how did it go? Lots of continued exploration throughout those 30 days. She was answering a lot of questions. She was using the device to label, make requests, and then comments like, I like it, or I don't like it, or that's funny. So here she is doing some of those things.
Do you remember?
So she's playing with magnets, and I would say she's using it to label.
Whale.
Good job. That's a whale.
And here she is watching a YouTube video where they're talking about shapes. And so she's commenting on the fact about what she's watching there. I think they're talking about a rectangle in the video.
Rectangle.
So just kind of using it in her day. And one really awesome thing, her mom kind of about towards the end sent me this great email that this morning she used it and she found the I love you button. And that was a big moment for them. So that was kind of exciting. The other thing that we did just to kind of collect data and evidence of the impact of the tool was we did something called the FIATs, which is the Family Impact of AT, of Assistive Technology Scale, and then there's one specifically for AAC. So it's the FIATs, AAC for short. But really, in the beginning, there's 38 questions that are the items on the left in the center column here, right over here. So it's not specific to AAC in the questions, but then wants to see how these different things, when you add AAC, have been impacted. So for example, my child needs help from others when communicating. So at baseline, that's the first gray column or the center column with the numbers, they chose 7, which is strongly agree. But then after the trial, it went down to a 2. So kind of a big impact, right? Which is strongly disagree. 1 is strongly disagree. So there's 38 of these items. I just put a few kind of up there, but kind of in a summary here. The FIATs is looking at changes in the child's behavior because of the equipment, their educational performance, their face-to-face communication, their sense of security, self-reliance, social versatility, and supervision. And MDC, the yes-no column, this one here, means minimal detectable change. So that's like, is this statistically significant? Were these numbers, do they mean anything? And so for the first 6 areas, yes. I mean, she had a huge change in the impact and their perception of her behavior and her educational participation and communication and security and all that. And the only one that was no, I think makes sense because she's 3. She's not like independently driving off on her own, right? So she still needs supervision. But all those other things I just think are so powerful, especially that change in that face-to-face communication, baseline being 1.8 and post being 5.6. I mean, that's just a huge change in just a short amount of time. So I think that was just really powerful data that health insurance likes too, because you just want to show the impact of this thing for on the individual. She's also getting a lot of great feedback from the school. So in February, she started early childhood. I think this helped make the transition to early childhood fairly smoother. She's got a way to tell you what she wants, how she wants, when she wants, to who she wants, right? Even though she's not a competent communicator yet, but no 3-year-old is. But this just is helping with that transition. So her speech pathologist just noted down here, wow, beautiful job interacting in language group, navigating her device, and she's in sync with the lesson. So super positive all around. Her mom says that she's just able to show and tell us all that she knows. The frustrations are down, and those difficult behaviors have just been minimized because she's a way to tell me what it is that she wants or what she's looking for. So we'll play this one.
Does Pete worry?
No.
Goodness, no. He sits
So this
down
is
with
them
his
reading the
friends and
book.
sings his song. Eating in my school shoes, eating in my school shoes, eating in my school shoes. Pete and his friends are playing outside in a green grassy field with swings and tall slides. Where is Pete? Playground.
So Emily, at this
Kids
point,
are
was at a point where she could answer that question. If they're not, you would just say, oh, where's Pete? Sounds like he's at a playground, and go find the button. All right, and then these were just some final kind of thoughts from Michelle.
Yeah, so I'm hearing the strategies that we're having it around all the time, and having her be allowed to just explore it. And as she's doing things that she's interested in doing, she's exploring and making the connections between, okay, I really like Sesame Street. And now I found all my characters in here. I found how I can talk about them. I found their colors. I found all that stuff.
Yeah. So when she was into Sesame Street and then we put all of her Sesame Street stuffies in the device, then she would identify where her people were and who she wanted to take. And even just seeing me explore in front of her. Mm-hmm. So I think it's important to, like, I think you suggested to explore it after her bedtime, to know where certain things were. But then if I didn't remember certain things or couldn't find something even in front of her, using that search button. Mm-hmm. And then now she uses the search button, not that she knows how to spell anything, but she knows where to go to kind of just explore, which I think is great because that will, as she gets older and knows more or wants to find something, she knows that's where to go. When we first received her device through insurance, that Sunday I started modeling, like, I want whatever. And she was like, okay, I want cookies. I'm like, okay, here you go, cookies. So she jumped on that really quickly. She doesn't use it always consistently, but it's there when she needs it.
Yeah.
So,
any suggestions, good, bad, ugly, that people, might want to learn from you guys about?
I would say give yourself a lot of grace, because at first I was very like, how do I even start to incorporate it? But little by little, we just kind of started more and more and more, and it's becoming more routine.
Mm-hmm. Is she taking it to school?
She is.
She's taking it to school now, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, she's taking it to school. She, they say that she uses it in her speech classes or her speech sessions and in class. Just, she knows exactly what she wants to say. Even in the evaluation at preschool, when we were playing with an ice cream cone, she went to ice cream. Mm-hmm. When we were playing with the bear, she went to bear. So she was showing off that she knew where everything was. And they were very impressed that she was really good at navigating through the pages at that point. And she had only had it for 2 months.
Yeah, I know. She just took off. I wonder what your thoughts are. So I know that sometimes it's a transition, right? To go from early intervention to early childhood. You're not going to daycare, you're going to school. That's a transition for any kid. And kids who aren't able to express themselves through speech, it can be a struggle because now people who are so familiar with you, your family, your caregivers, they're not there, and those new people don't know your body language and all of those kinds of ins and outs about you yet. Do you think that maybe having access to it kind of helped bridge it a little bit? I mean, obviously it's a transition. It's going to be a transition, but
yeah. I think so, because I think she felt like she could, in that evaluation that first time, and there's just me and then there's 6 other adults in there, and she was very comfortable with, I'm grabbing my device, this is what we're talking about. And so she felt, even in that meeting, like she could show them, this is what I know. And so I think that has just carried on with her, because all I hear from her teachers is that she's really good at using it and participating in discussions about books and things. And that's the only way she would be able to do that and show them. So I think that has been very helpful. And even in the device itself, one of the features in the support section are steps on, there's one that was given as a hand washing step. And then we added one, all the 4 steps to bedtime. And then when we
if you guys want to check that out, what she's talking about in the app, it's on the dashboard, and then there's supports if you want to look. But you can add those, for any of you who are just in the visual support talk, you can add those first then, or the visual schedule, visual timer, all that stuff's kind of built in there. So that's what Michelle's talking about right now.
When she started taking the bus to school, we added bus, school, bus daycare. And so she's able to visually see and point and kind of say, this is what's happening today. And so I think she's more comfortable knowing, okay, these are the steps that I'm going through today. And so we use those to help prepare her for school. So I think that also really helped because the transition to the bus went well.
Great.
Because we were days prior saying, okay, you're going to ride the bus, go to school, and daycare.
Yeah.
And so I think that really helped with her transition.
So, and I didn't mean to cut you off. You were talking earlier about recommendations you had. Giving yourself space was what you had mentioned.
Yes. Because even like just, where did we go yesterday? We went to the library and I totally forgot to bring her device. Like I grabbed her diaper bag and just, we were on the way and I was like, oh man. But as much, like I'm still working on remembering that as part of all of the things, but like I can't beat myself down. She was running the whole time anyway, so I don't know that she would have used it, but just remembering it's still like a transition to that. But then also like we have created in the support section, like books of the places that we go. I'd say that's a really amazing thing that she loves is being able to like show grandma or auntie what we did this weekend. Like I went to the museum and these are all the things I did, or we went to the library and these are all the things I did. Mm-hmm. Whether it's just her going back herself or being able to show somebody, I think those are important because then it's like she's talking about her life.
Yeah, sharing all that stuff. Oh, that's awesome. Cool. Well, anything else that you wanted to add?
I think one of the hard still is being able to explain it to people who don't know what it is and what it does. And I think that's still, we're still like learning that part. But I think everybody has been like really accepting and like understanding and very like, oh, that's amazing. And she's so great. And it's always just been positive. That once they see how well she works the device, that it like kind of takes the stress away. Yeah. So once we got.
All right. So just, kind of to conclude here, we talked a little bit about what AAC is. Hopefully you kind of got to explore it and a better understanding of it. There are many other options out there, so definitely an assessment with a specialist is important. And my whole point is the earlier the better, but there is no time to be too late. So Emily and Michelle's story is just one story, but it kind of just demonstrates the earlier you're introducing these things, kind of the impact that it can have on the family and school and all that transitioning and her language and communication development. So with that, does anybody have any questions, comments? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they have a communication device, and then the parents will say they won't use their communication device because they want the phone. Do you have any suggestions on how to navigate that?
Yeah, so it is tricky. I like that it's separate because sometimes people have it all built into one and then you can never get anybody to flip to the communication app. If YouTube's on there, it's like done. But I would ask about what the interventions are to teach the child how to use it. It's not a magic wand. Somebody needs to be modeling, touching it, and using it. And how frequently siblings, parents, babysitters, teachers are touching the device to communicate. Because if you don't view it as a tool that's a powerful communicative tool, why use it? So you need to. The other thing, there's something called the Communication Bill of Rights, and one of the Bill of Rights is to communicate authentically in the method and modality that the other person is communicating with you. So if you're communicating with speech and they're communicating with text, as in like an AAC device, you're using two different methods, which would be very similar to me typing out everything right now and you guys talking back to me. We're different, you know? So communicating in the same method, AAC to AAC, you're modeling that this is the expectation. This is how we communicate, and you're learning to communicate. So it's hard because I know that, you know, as Michelle was saying, it's hard to remember it all the time, and you got to give yourself grace, and it's a lot. I get it, but it really does often come down to, well, do you ever use the device to show them how to communicate? And the answer is usually no. And then, I don't know, you know, how will they know that it can be helpful to communicate? They don't see it being helpful.
My daughter was diagnosed, she's 25 now.
Uh-huh.
I'm just so excited that there's all this technology.
Oh, yeah.
There was nothing like this.
Well, the iPads came out in 2010, so it's only 15 years, right? And the first app was an app called Proloquota Go, which maybe many of you have heard of. It's still around. But it just made AAC so much more accessible because it was cost effective and smaller, and everybody was having an iPad, and it's just exponentially exploded. And I was a speech therapist before 2010, so remembering the devices that were these giant things that were $30,000, yeah, it's made a huge difference. Yeah.
So then would you say it's important for a child that has the AAC to take that back and forth between mom and dad's house?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. It's kind of an in-your-face question, but is it important for you to take your throat to all of the places that you're going to, right? Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So my daughter is 5.
Mm-hmm.
She was in early intervention and everything. We knew she was autistic at 3, but nobody ever mentioned AAC
Mm-hmm.
to us.
Yep.
So she's only had it for about a year,
Mm-hmm.
and her speech therapist only knew touch chat.
Yeah.
And that's kind of just what we were given and what
Mm-hmm.
she's using.
Mm-hmm.
And it's working okay.
Mm-hmm.
But would it be more beneficial to now just stick with it and just
Yeah.
hope that it's the best for her?
Yeah, I think so. One, as in learning any kind of language, you know, spoken, AAC, a new language, it doesn't happen overnight. It's very slow. To learn new words and all that is slow. So giving it time. Touch Chat is a wonderful app. It was actually one that I showed them as well. The biggest difference between the two are that motor planning component.
And I knew that for sure.
Yep.
I mean, she's very smart. She seems to be doing well with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no way of knowing. But I mean, she's had it for a year, so I don't want her to feel like
Yeah.
I would hate to go backwards, but also like, am I doing what's best for her?
I think so. I think comparably they both have about the same number of words. They're organized fairly similar in that they're categorically, like when you want foods, you go to the food category, and when you want, right? The biggest difference is that in Touch Chat, you have that next logical word, so when you say eat, it automatically pulls you up to your foods thing. That doesn't do that in TD Snap, and that's that motor plan component. And that's okay. Some kids hate that Touch Chat changes. Like, I pushed this button and it all went away and moved.
Right. And her speech therapist has said like she gets frustrated sometimes that she has to go back to the main page to find like if it's, you know, it was an accident or she didn't want that. So she has seen some frustrations, but like I said, like that was all we knew, so we just went with it.
Sure.
I'm hoping
Yeah.
that's not like a bad thing.
No.
So it's like I don't, you know, you wouldn't ask like somebody that speaks Chinese to just, you know, start English one day just because. So like,
Yeah.
you know, like I mean, I don't know if that's a good comparison, but like
No, it is true. I mean, in
far with it.
yes.
I hate to make her start all over.
I agree. In a perfect ideal world, every speech therapist would know about all these things and start you off early. That's certainly not the case. Her story is the majority of the stories that I hear from families. I did a professional track of like, please do this in EI, so just to try and like say how beneficial it can be. But she's 5, it's okay, and I think that a year isn't really that much time in the big scope of learning AAC. And to switch it up now, that's where you can start to just throw in all this confusion. And touch chat will get you just as far as TD Snap. I mean, they're all kind of 6 to 1, half dozen the other. Yeah, it would have been great a year ago if she could show you the choices and you guys could decide, but it's not a bad choice. So, yeah. And PRC Saltillo is the company, so this probably looks very familiar to you. And they have a ton of online supports for families. Are you familiar with those?
I've been on their website, just haven't done a whole lot with it. But
Well, first of all, that company has like 15 different websites for all these things. So it's a huge website that's connected to all these other websites. But one of the things is the AAC Language Lab, and it just is like, gives you ideas of how to incorporate and model the device in like typical daily activities. Like we're playing with chalk, or we're doing bubbles, or we're reading, and here are some things that you can model with the device and how you can include it. And I think it's really nice for therapists, schools, but also families. They also have a really nice virtual group that is for families. The next session starts in June, I think. It's free, and you meet virtually, and you're with a solutions consultant from the company who's always like a speech path by background. And you talk about the device and how you could incorporate it and what's going well and what's not, and some questions. And it's just a nice group, and it's a nice way to meet other people who are using the device. But it's not for the child. It's just for the family. So all of those things are just really nice aspect of touch chat and word power. And if you would like, and anybody here, you're welcome to these things, because I always like communication to be everywhere. But I have a touch chat board, if you want that in your home or her room or the kitchen or whatever. It doesn't have the fun words, but you are more than welcome to take it. It doesn't have vampire on there.
right? Yes, speech therapist is amazing because she's going to start kindergarten next year, and they're trying to put posters in like our gymnasium and in her kindergarten classroom,
Yeah.
just to make it like more user friendly for like all the kids, just to kind of like include her into things.
Definitely.
And see what it looks like. And
Well, yeah, and that transition, when you have it ahead of time, then it takes the workload off of, like, I got to get comfortable with all these new people and these new friends and this new schedule, and now they want to teach me this. So if you get that ahead of time, it's kind of eases up on that transition. Yeah, no problem. Would you like one too? I think I have another one.
My daughter started early childhood, so again, this was a long time ago.
Yeah.
She was the first child that they used picture schedules in her kindergarten class.
Uh-huh.
And by week 2, the teacher said the whole classroom's behavior decreased because all the kids were
Oh, yeah. Yes. Definitely kindergarten classrooms